Hi, hello, namaskar. What's up, everybody? This is Shubham Thakur here, and welcome to Shubham Thakur's Live. And today we have a guest who is an international keynote speaker and two-time TEDx speaker, Miss Mariya Radysh. Welcome, Miss Mariya.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So first of all, before starting the session, I would like to give a very lovely introduction of yours. Is that Mariya is an international keynote speaker and two-time TEDx speaker. She is a thought leader on intentional adaptability, human potential, and how to thrive as a human being in 2020s. Her life journey started with growing up on a farm in a small Ukrainian village. Since then, she has lived on three continents, studied at five universities, completed nearly a dozen of university degrees and qualifications, built three careers, including as a lawyer and interpreter in five languages. Over the past few years, she has been conducting research about the lives of our high achievers, how our brain and body function, and what is overall puzzle that we need to know in order to be happy, healthy, and successful in the modern day world. Like, I'm literally fascinated by your personality and the story. So welcome, Miss Maria. Welcome.
I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So let's move it to the first question. Is that could you please give a brief about your journey of life?
Oh my God, that's probably the hardest question.
Yeah.
yeah, as you mentioned, I did grow up on a farm in a small
Yeah.
Ukrainian village. Had a
Yeah.
really happy childhood, but
Yeah.
as soon as I turned five, my life it just became about grind. So I started music school. I moved countries. I started studying a different language. I had to prepare to start school next year and to study in that other language. Then I started studying another language, another language.
Yeah.
So since I was five, I just kept grinding and grinding and grinding till I was 35. And on my 35th birthday, this is only when I finally, I just finally sat down and I had a conversation with myself. And I realized that I was so busy. I even didn't think whether I was happy or where my life was going. I was just getting another degree and another career, another this, another that.
Yeah.
Partly because at the time I just kept attaching happiness to other people and to other things, to yet another job, to yet another relationship, to yet another car, to this and that. So I had this huge misconception, which is I think growing up in Eastern Europe, the way we were brought up is very similar to the way people are brought up in India in a lot of ways. And by the way, we
Yeah.
had so many amazing Indian movies streamed on TV. So
Okay.
many beautiful Indian movies. So yeah, one of the warmest things about my childhood is remembering watching those Indian movies, the Bollywood
Yeah. Can you
stuff.
name one of them?
Sorry?
Can you name one of them? Like,
Oh my God, no, because there was so many of them. We were just consuming
yeah.
this candy. 'Cause
Yeah.
all the music and costumes and actors and
Yeah.
singing and all of that, yeah, it was very different to the culture where I was growing up. And yeah, Russians, Ukrainians just absolutely love Indian movies. Yeah, sorry, I kind of deviated from the point. So yeah, I just kept attaching my happiness to success, and I measured my success by how busy I was. So it was like a misconception, tagging misconception. And when it was my 35th birthday, I finally thought about it, like whether I was happy, whether I was healthy, and I wasn't. Whether I arrived in my life to where I thought I would by that age. So this is where I started my research. It was very easy to let go busyness, and I still sometimes fall into it. It's difficult to change habits because it takes time to create habits, and it takes time to change habits always. So
Yeah.
sometimes I do fall into that busyness routine again, but I quickly become aware of it and I pull myself out. Because trust me, busy and grinding are not the answer. Not at all. It's all about how much energy we have. It's all about how focused we are. And very importantly, we have to be disciplined with both, not just work, but also rest and recovery. So this is
Yeah.
very important. So yeah, at 35, this is when I started research into high achievers, those people who I deem to be successful, like Ariana Huffington, Oprah, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, so many, many, many other characters like that. Not the Kardashians, with all due respect.
Yeah,
Yeah, so and I just started analyzing what were they doing differently. And yes, I saw there were quite a few skills that they had more developed than an average person. And yeah, one of the things I saw that in particular, they all did have that period of grind. But at some point, they realized that grind takes you on to a certain point. And
yeah,
then in order to grow to the next level, you need to change the way you do things.
yes,
So if you want to grow, keeping grinding will only hold you back. And in particular, Ariana Huffington with her Thrive Global movement is very vocal about it. I'm sure you know her story, that she was so busy and so stressed out and kept grinding that she ended up losing conscience and hurting herself very badly.
yeah.
So now she's trying to she's leading that movement of how to be healthy, how to be happy. So in those lines that I'm doing my research as well.
Yeah, completely. And nowadays, it's very important after the pandemic to be happy and healthy. So, as you are a thought leader, so who are thought leaders and how to become one? Actually, it's a very unique term and very uncommon term, and a very different occupation here in India. I never heard of a thought leader. So, I would like to, yeah, yeah. Please tell us what it is. Yeah.
Before we talk about it, please do remember that thought leaders do not get paid. So
Oh, really?
having that
Yeah.
fancy title given by peers, which is amazing, amazing to be called a thought leader. I don't think it's not something you can give to yourself. It's something that your peers can call you
Yeah.
once you show, what your mission is, what your values are, what's the quality of your content is. So it is something that only can be given by others with time, of course.
Yeah.
It's an incredible honor to have this title to put in front of my name. Yeah, but it's not something it's not something you give to yourself. And like I said, being a thought leader doesn't pay money. So
Yeah.
you have to think, okay, if you turning this into a business, what would be the structure of that business? Or if it's somehow aligned with your career job wise, then how that's gonna look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I hope I answered the
as
question.
yeah, absolutely. So, as I was reading your LinkedIn post, and by the way, guys, whoever you is watching, do follow her on LinkedIn. She posts very amazing content there. And as I was saying that I in one of your LinkedIn posts, you discuss the functioning of the brain, that it doesn't care about the passion or dream or goal, and on which we are working on. So, how to control that, and how to uh, concentrate the brain over there. So yeah,
Yeah. This is what once again, we have a huge misconception about that. We think that if we're tackling big things,
yeah,
then somehow our brain will operate differently. But nothing can be further from the truth because the brain is fascinating. It's the most fascinating thing that we know of. And we just scratch the surface with learning about it, how it functions, and it does so much for us. We just don't feel it, we don't sense it because it all runs in the background. We do realize our conscious thoughts, and we do realize our feelings, but the brain is operating all of this, all of our organs, all our thought processes. So it does consume a lot of energy. It does need energy, and it just does so much for us. And it just, yeah, it doesn't care, if you're a university student, or if you're a president running a country, or you work as a cleaner, or I don't know, you work as a inventor, if you're next Tesla, or if you're next Musk. The brain just doesn't understand that. It doesn't see the difference whether the person has a grand mission or is a couch potato. So the basics are the same for every brain. Like we all the same in that sense. Yes, of course, we're very very different and very unique. But the basics, the principles, and we already know enough about the basics and principles. They all the same. So it's you need to take good care of your brain. You need to know how it works. And speaking of which I'd like to recommend a few books because this is such a grand topic, a very very interesting vast topic, and we won't be able to talk about enough
Yeah.
today. So, like one of the really great neuroscientists is David Eagleman, and this is a really interesting book. It's a very good introduction into how our brain operates. And we'll provide links under the recording later
Just
on to
yeah.
those books. So yeah, if you want to learn more about how the brain operates, like this is a fantastic book, The Brain by David Eagleman, and look up his interviews. He's really he's very generous with sharing knowledge about those things. Another really good book is called The Molecule of More. So it specifically talks about dopamine, which
Okay.
is like a go-getter hormone.
Yeah.
It's labeled as one of the happiness hormones, and it's kind of is, but it's a mislabeling. Like it's that hormone that actually help us to dream of things and to go and do them. So
Yeah.
they're a very interesting book, Molecule of More. Another really great author is Sarah McKay.
Okay.
She does a lot of very interesting stuff. So she's also a very very known expert in this area. And you absolutely must check out Andrew Huberman's interviews on YouTube. Andrew Huberman is a brilliant neuroscientist from Stanford, and over the last few months, oh my God, he's giving so many amazing interviews. And he also started a podcast, and his episodes are like 2 hours long. But oh my God, the stuff he
Yeah.
shares. I mean, I'm doing research on those topics, and a lot of things that he says I never heard before, I never read before. And he misspells a lot of misconceptions about sleep and about how brain works and what stress is and what you can do about it. So yeah, if you like podcasts, besides this amazing podcast, if you like podcasts, check out Andrew Huberman because he's, oh my God, I do have a science crush on this man. Very generous with his insights. He's got laboratory where they're doing a lot of research. He networks and he networks with other neuroscientists, and they do a lot of work together and share findings. So he's just, I can't wait. He's planning to write a book. I just can't wait to read his book when it comes out.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, yes, his podcast and his interviews on other podcasts are absolutely amazing. And if you do get him, please introduce me. I really would love to brainstorm.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So yeah, actually, I will look into his podcast and I'll share you the insights as well. So, like, moving forward to the next question is that what was your view on the post you shared about rise and don't grind? Like it's very different from the quote, the famous quote. Yeah,
I get nearly mad when I see those posts popping up because it's a quite popular quote that gets shared around on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, on every social media. It's one of those quotes that just keep popping up. And it's very misleading because, like I said, grinding can take you only to a certain level. And is just a sure way into burnout, which did happen to me. If you watch my second TEDx talk, I share about my burnout. So, like I said, at 35, I started my research, but I didn't stop grinding. And I did end up burning myself out. And it was so difficult to pick myself up out of that. I just felt burnt into ashes. And I realized, it's much, 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 much easier to prevent those things from happening if you do take care of yourself, if you do take care of your body, if you do take care of your brain, rather than let yourself, peak into anxiety or fall into depression or burn out the way I did, where I just didn't care about anything. I just couldn't get out of the bed. I was just exhausted physically and mentally. And when it happens, once again, the brain doesn't care what your mission is. It doesn't
yeah,
care how talented you are, what your vision is, how many people you are helping, how skillful you are, what knowledge you possess. If you don't take care of your brain, it won't be able to serve you properly either. There's a really good saying that brain is a very good servant, but a very bad master. And especially now, we need to understand that very, very thoroughly, because life has changed. It has become more stressful than ever. It has become more unpredictable than ever. We can no longer just rely on circumstances. We have to be in charge of what our brain is doing, how we
Yes.
reacting to things, because lots of things that don't deserve our reaction at all. And
Yeah,
not only we
absolutely.
react, we overreact, and we'll then steep into self-pity and anger and other very unuseful emotions and things like that, instead of moving on. And this is what's important, how quickly you can move on when something does happen. Because life doesn't wait. And like I said, it's just the world has become more stressful as ever. In fact, lots of experts say that in one day we experience more stress than our
Yeah.
ancestors in their entire lifespan.
Yeah,
And our brain
absolutely.
is just not it hasn't adapted to that. So we need to do work for our brain and help it to be focused, to be energized, to be disciplined. We need to become the driver.
Yeah. So, I have one question related that nowadays, especially people, especially youngsters, who seem lost in various ways. So, what do you think that was the reason behind this? And especially, I'm taking the example of me. Sometimes I just feel lost. I know everything. I'm doing everything. I know what is right for me, what is not. But as you said, their life is very unpredictable right now. But why always I feel that I'm lost or something? Yeah,
Well, one of the things is, like I mentioned, life has become very stressful and we're just not used to this. So it's one of the reasons. But there's also a lot of things that appeared in our life that weren't there 10 years ago, 20 years ago. For example, 20 years ago, I didn't even have a mobile phone.
yes,
And, I got into social media a little bit, maybe 10 years ago only. And in particular, social media plays a huge role because so many people post photos or videos, and we look at them and we think that they're true. And they're not. Whether it's, how someone looks or what they achieved or, how happy they are in a relationship, most of the time it's either fake or it's just in that moment, because a photo that took a second to take doesn't show what's happening behind that photo. But we get that perception that, this is how it should be, and we don't have it, and we must have it, and we just get depressed about it. So unfortunately, on social media, there are just too many false influencers, and yeah, just us eating it up, you know.
yeah. So, nowadays, as these things are, trendy, we follow the trend which is going on, and especially whatever our favorite influencer does, we do, right? So, how do we need to be in charge of our brain, and to rewire it in order to serve us better? Yeah, especially like as I told you that youngsters are pretty fucked up right now. So yeah,
It's quite fascinating that we can rewire our brain at any point in our life. It becomes more difficult after 25 years old, because
yeah,
the way brain works is that till we turn 25, it's programmed to learn, but after 25, it's programmed genetically to use things that were already learned. But it's absolutely possible to rewire our brain at any point in time in our life, and it's called neuroplasticity, which is fascinating. I'm so happy that they find out about that. And one of the things is to understand is that the best way to rewire our brain is through consistency.
yeah.
We have this misconception that if we want to create a big shift, then we need to do something grand and straight away. um, and it also has to do with us being quite impatient and expecting short-term rewards as well, and just wanting everything straight away as well. But in order to properly rewire our brain, we need to be consistent with our efforts. So, for example, if we want to be more confident, just like one of the little things that I will share, if we want to be confident, we should start making our bed every morning. and there's a
Yeah.
science behind it, which I will talk in my first ebook when it comes out soon. But yeah, when we're doing that every morning, we can actually rewire our brain to be in particular more confident. But also, let's say if we make our bed in different ways. So,
Yeah.
for example, if we have different cushions and we use each day different cushions to pretty it up, if we maybe have like I have linen has two sides, so it's one pattern on one side and a different pattern on the other side, so I can flip them back and forth. So it's like giving it a whole look. I have throws that I can fold in different ways and practice, and it's not about making it beautiful and gorgeous and absolutely perfect. Absolutely
Yeah.
not. It's about making sure that you do get it done, and also making sure that you do something different every day. So it helps with two things: that it helps you to become more confident with time, and it helps you to become more better at problem solving, because you start looking at things, at problems, at issues from different angles, and you
Yeah.
start thinking of different solutions, not just one, but you come up with different solutions to that problem. So just such a small thing as to make your bed in different ways every morning actually slowly rewires your brain to become better at problem solving and to become more confident, and as a result more resilient. So yeah, but also very, very importantly, it's something that I don't really hear about, is that when we want to rewire our brain, it's crucial to get proper sleep,
Yeah.
because if we don't, then nothing happens. When we sleep, certain things get removed from the brain. So, in particular, when we're rewiring our brain, we need to loosen connections between certain neurons, those connections that don't really work for us, and
Yeah.
to build and strengthen connections among neurons that do work for us. So, as an example, for instance, it turns out that negative thinking and positive thinking differs in the sense that it's different regions of the brain produce either. So it's a different part of the brain that produces negative thoughts, and it's a different part of the brain that produces positive thoughts. So if we want to become more positive, more optimistic, it's about loosening those connections between neurons that produce negative thoughts and strengthening connections between neurons that produce positive or useful thinking, or at least neutral thinking.
Yeah.
So there's not just useful thinking. Sorry, not just positive thinking. There's also useful thinking, neutral thinking, which is more or
Yeah.
less not the same, but they're all opposite to negative thinking. So whatever works for you. um,
Yeah.
yeah, you can pick whether positive, useful, or neutral. I
Yeah.
prefer useful
Neutral.
thinking.
Yeah.
So sleep is very, very important in order for us to remove connections that we don't want, and in order for us to build and strengthen connections that we do want. So if we don't get proper sleep, you know, not much neuroplasticity does take place. So if we want to rewire our brain, for two things, we need to remember that it's about small, consistent efforts, and it's about getting proper sleep in order for neuroplasticity to actually occur.
Yes. So, now we are like the answer you gave, that was very, very useful, helpful for all of us, especially as we seem lost. And there are several things which I think that didn't happen to us, but just because it's all over, it's on all over the social media, we think that, right? Like if there are so many people who just post or post the stories or post photos that we are depressed and we have nothing, we are this and that. So these kind of things has created a mindset in a very bad way. So yeah, so now I'm moving forward to the next question, which on which you gave a TEDx speech, and which is quite popular and very useful. So how to thrive as a human being in 2020s? Yeah.
That's what I'm figuring out, because it is a puzzle.
Yeah.
It is a puzzle. There are certain pieces. Like I said, we are very similar. We are the same in certain ways. So we all need sleep. We all need proper nutrition. We all need relationships. We all need sex. Um, we need all of us need certain things, but they do differ from a person to a person. So for me, for example, nutrition was the most important piece to my puzzle. It was something that I really didn't take care of it all. I was just so busy grinding that I had food like once a day when I was coming home at midnight after, after finally being done with everything. I was coming
Yeah.
home at midnight and my dinner was basically either I was getting a pack of salami sticks and I was just eating them while driving in my car because I knew that by the time I would get home, I would just collapse. I
Yeah.
would, I wouldn't have it in me even to go to the fridge if there was anything there. Or if
Yeah.
I did have some energy in me, I would just stand and eat quickly over the sink. Because, so not to wash dishes and just, I treat it as a chore. I treat it as a nuisance. I treat it as a waste of my time until I burnt out and I started researching into those things. And I realized how important it is not only what we eat, but also how we eat. So, in particular, for us to have a stronger immune system, to have more energy, it's very important to eat slowly. It's
Yeah.
very important to be mindful, and to focus on the food, not watch TV, not to think about something stressful, but actually focus on that food that we're eating and feeling grateful for it and enjoying it and really savoring it. And there is a reason why in so many cultures it's a custom to, sit down as a family and pray before you have food and then have food slowly together. And there is incredible science behind it. So, in particular, you become mindful. You don't think about anything else. You do think about the food. You practice your gratitude. And also, when you share food with people that you like or love, you actually get better nutrition.
Yeah.
So that was really fascinating for me to find out, and it's something that every one of us could do. Eating slowly, being more mindful about it, and try to share our meals with someone who enjoy to be in their company. And we can do it over Zoom. It doesn't have to be in person. So
Yeah.
going back to your question, for me that was that most important puzzle, but um, I also had to relearn how to sleep because nutrition and sleep are tied together. It's a two-way street. It is a two-way street. So in particular, when you don't get proper sleep, you're more prone to eating junk food. You crave food-like products, you crave junk food. And when you eat junk food, in return, you don't get proper sleep. And that becomes a vicious circle.
Yeah.
And also with hydration, if you don't hydrate properly, you don't get proper sleep. And if you don't get proper sleep, your body doesn't get hydrated properly, regardless how much water you drink.
Yeah.
So nutrition was the most important piece to the puzzle, but relearning how to sleep properly was very, very pivotal for me to take care of it. So, like I said, there are different pieces to that puzzle. And if we were to break those pieces into categories, I would say there are three categories. So, the first category is our health, both mental and physical. The second category is our relationships.
Yeah.
There's, by the way, a really interesting TEDx talk or TED talk on research about happiness, where they researched a group of people for, I think, 75 years or at least 70 years. So they
Yeah.
followed them around and they studied what was making them happy. And they realized that having proper relationships, not the quality, sorry, not the quantity, but the quality of proper relationships was one of the most important pieces to feeling happy.
Yeah.
So first piece is health, second piece is relationships, and the third piece is our fulfillment, is our, I guess, professional fulfillment, call it that. It could be your hobby, it could be maybe volunteer work that you're doing, it could be your career, your business. So it is important to feel fulfilled. And for that, yeah, to improve our skills, like skill of focus, skill of confidence, skill of emotional intelligence, skill of problem solving, skill of goal setting, and these are all skills. So it
Yeah.
means that they all can be improved.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure.
So lots and lots of pieces. I haven't even got to the vibrations and frequencies yet. That's going to be interesting. But just, yeah, just to repeat, to highlight that all those pieces basically fall into three categories: our personal health, the quality of our relationships, and fulfillment.
Yes, completely. And so these things you said, and I think like couple of past decades, the things and the people are completely different. So, what do you think that how things have changed and how people have changed their mindset and the nature has been, the ecosystem, whole ecosystem has changed. So what are the consequences of that? Yeah.
Remember, like in the beginning of the conversation, we mentioned that we've never lived in such stressful times.
Yeah.
And even if you think about your life 10 years ago or 20 years ago, let alone, the life of your parents, the way they were growing up, it's very different. So, for example, one of the major stresses is us sitting in front of a desk for like, through most of our day. Sitting is a major stress to both our brain and our body. We shouldn't be sitting for more than 4 hours a day. We should be moving our body at least once an hour. So it's one of the stresses that affects our body on many, many levels. And one of them is that we stop breathing properly. We no longer breathe like we slouch, and we no longer breathe deeply. And it tells our brain thinks that something is wrong, because in the nature we slow down our breathing, like we breathe very quietly only if we think that we're in danger and we're trying to hide from something.
Yeah.
So our brain thinks that, oh my god, there is something stressful happening if my person doesn't breathe properly anymore. So just by sitting at a desk for too long, slouching, forgetting to breathe properly, it's a nearly sure way to anxiety and depression, unfortunately. So just one of the stresses, but also there's so many chemicals in water that we drink. There's so much chemicals in food that we eat. So our body just doesn't recognize them, and they have very adverse effect on both our brain and our body. It's the lack of sunlight, because statistics show that over 90% of our day, most of us spend inside. We don't, sometimes we just don't go outside at all.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly stressful because we have to spend in the sunlight every day somewhere between from 10 minutes to 2 hours, depending on our age, depending where we are, if the sun is brighter or not as bright. So the intensity of the sunlight, because in particular, it also works on many, many levels. It helps our brain to recognize what the time of the day it is. So, for instance, in particular, Andrew Huberman, the neuroscientist from Stanford, who I mentioned, he shared a really interesting finding that when you wake up in the morning, one of the first things you should do is actually go outside and look in the direction of the sunrise. So it will tell
Okay.
your brain that it's morning, and within 16 hours it's supposed to wind down. So if you want to get proper sleep that night, one of the most important things you can do is to go outside in the morning and catch some. Don't look directly at the sunlight, but in the direction of the sunrise for maybe 10 minutes, for up to 10 minutes, and it will tell your brain what time of the day it is, and that in 16 hours it needs to relax and rest, and it's going to be time to go to sleep. Yeah, so having not getting enough sunlight
Yeah.
is very, very stressful to our body. And there's a lot of things, low quality relationships, not getting enough touch, which is very important. For some people, it's more important than for others, but it is important. A lot of things, but in particular with how we don't sleep properly anymore and how we don't eat properly anymore, among major stresses.
Yeah. So now here's come the last question, which is the one of the overrated question in the whole world. But still, whenever I ask this question to a person, I always get a very unique answer and very helpful answer. So the question is that, and I hope that so many people have still have this question, is that how to control our mind and using at its best. Yeah.
It's going to take time. You have to be patient about it. You have to be
Yeah.
very consistent about it. You need to have clarity. What is it you want to achieve?
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen overnight. It takes about 2 months, at least 2 months, for our brain to for certain things to change permanently. They say 21 day, but it's not true, and it's a different story. Why how that came about? It just has to do with plastic surgery, has nothing to do with the brain as such. So usually it takes somewhere between 2 to 9 months of consistent efforts to feel significant changes. Changes do happen overnight sometimes, but it's really rare when there is a very significant traumatic experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So, in that case, our brain could be rewired in certain ways overnight, but on average, it takes about 2 to 9 months to make changes stick. So, if you want to improve something, you have to set up a system where you can be consistent for up to 9 months. If you can't commit to it, don't bother starting. It's not gonna, it's not gonna work. It's just gonna fall back into your old thinking patterns and into your old habits. So create a strategy of something that you can do on a daily basis. And like, for example, making bed in different ways and catching the
Yeah.
sunlight in the mornings, eating slowly, things like that. So if you can stick to something for up to 9 months, then you will achieve changes that you're seeking. But you've got to be clear what you want to achieve and stick to it, be consistent with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, I'm ending the session, and thank you so much, Maria, for coming on my show. And I'm so honored to have you. And thank you so much for sharing the wisdom you have. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Bye bye.